for the case of our webinar here, we're just going to talk about obviously directional trading, so maybe long or short. But most importantly, we have to be prepared to change our opinion, and I think that is the most important part. And most people are not willing to do that. And Jack, I want to back up just for one moment based on what you just said, because what you said is really, really important, and it's I think one of the most important parts of trading. When you go and you actually read information about George Soros and The Alchemy of Finance, or many of George Soros's other books, and when you really study what George Soros does, one of the most amazing things I think about George Soros' ability in markets, he is willing to change his mind on a dime. And that's something that most of us are not willing to do. We're not willing to admit to ourselves that we were wrong. And we're not willing to close a position and reopen it in another direction if we have to, because doing so would violate all of our day-to-day dogma and bias and create a conflict where we like to be right? We like to actually to be validated, and that's part of the reason why I think people trade, because obviously not only do they like the they like the money that comes out of it if they're doing well, but they also there is a certain amount of ego, I think, in that comes from the validation of being right. In one of the very final moments of Margaret Hefferman's speak, she says, we have to be prepared to change our minds. And she says, if when we have this she's speaking when she's proven wrong sometimes, she says, if when we have this conflict, it turns out I'm wrong, I've learned something. I want to know if I'm wrong because I'd rather be right. So if I'm wrong, let's find out. Well, the hard part about markets is that if you're wrong, markets are going to let you know really quick. There's nobody here can override markets. What if you're wrong? Basically, obviously, you're going to lose a lot of money, or you're going to lose a lot of money until it gets so painful that you either close your trade or your account blows up. So what we have to do is we have to be willing to admit that we were wrong, and maybe it was our bias, maybe it was a generalization, maybe it was an indicator, maybe it was one of many things. So let's go back over to our chart really quick. And Chuck says, change your mind or lose your change. Right, awesome. That's great, Chuck. You are on the ball, I can tell. And Kelly Mel says, sometimes you have to stick with it. Changing mind too often is too much opinion. Volatility can be harmful. And Kelly Mel is totally right there as well. Especially change your mind under pressure. You're right, Kelly Mel. We have to have a plan, and we have to stick to it. But we have to understand that in markets, sometimes the plan changes, and we have to be able to find a certain level of, rationality to be able to see those instances. So, okay, let's talk about WavePM here, and we'll talk about how that can help in those situations. Okay, what is WavePM? First of all, WavePM, and everybody can actually see the indicator right here, WavePM is not an indicator that gives you any idea to whether price is going to go up or down. It is not a directional indicator. Much like the gas gauge in your car is not an indicator of whether you're going forwards or backwards. But it lets you know how far you can go based on how much gas is in the tank, right? If you have a tank that's almost on empty, you probably aren't going to be able to drive 200 miles. If you have a tank that's on full, you probably can drive 200 miles, right? So what I try to do, and the entire theory and principle behind this indicator, and it was basically, if you consider in Einstein's theory of relativity, energy equals mass times the speed of light. Well, what do we have there? We have energy mass equivalence. And then as I really kind of started to think about markets, I realized, well, frankly, I don't agree with all Newtonian physics, but you have something called mass equal or force, and force equals mass times acceleration, right? So think about this for a moment. Force equals mass times acceleration. If I give somebody a 100-pound bowling ball and I tell them to roll it up a hill, how much force are they going to have to use? Versus if I give them a 10,000-pound bowling ball and I tell them to roll it up a hill, how much force are they going to have to use? It simply, is it easier to push a dump truck full of lead up a mountain versus a wheelbarrow full of feathers? Obviously a wheelbarrow full of feathers. Well, what if, and this is what took about 5 years to figure out for this indicator, what if we can actually measure mass in terms of distributions in markets? And if we can measure mass in distributions in markets, then we have the ability to quantify the amount of force required to push that mass. And what is that mass? That mass is price. And what we want to know as traders, we want to know what is the probability of price actually seeing significant follow-through when it's going to go up or down, or after it's gone up or down, that it's going to continue going up or down or go lateral, right? And by doing so, by being able to just quantify how much gas is in the tank, instead of guessing, trying to guess what this endless run is going to be or how long the lateral chop is going to last, because if we can quantify how long the lateral chop is going to last, can't we trade mean reversion positions in that range, right? Or if prices change, trending, and we can quantify how much gas is in the tank in that, for the trend to continue on, can't we trade the pullbacks and trade with that trend? So what we're talking about here is a total paradigm shift in the way we think about markets. Instead of just looking for a trend or looking for an indicator that's going to give us some idea of price direction, we're actually looking for something that quantifies the unquantifiable, which is that total murky generalization of overbought and oversold, which comes with 99.9% of all the indicators out there. So WavePM, as I mentioned, is basically, it is an indicator that it lets us know how much gas is potentially in the tank.